Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Andertons TV, and my special guest today is possibly, technologically, one of the most disruptive men in the entire music industry. And I say that in the nicest possible way. Christoph Kemper.
Thanks for inviting me.
No, and I've been wanting to invite you on the show for a long time to talk. This is not a product demo video or anything like that. I wanted to talk to you as with you as just as one of the, I say disruptive, I mean, I think you've disrupted the technology that guitar players would traditionally use to be heard on stage. I mean, traditional guitar amps with an alternative that creates its tones in an entirely unique way to any of its competitors. But I wanted to sort of meet you and talk about how you got into that, because when I first, I hadn't met you at the time, when I first heard of you, of course, you were making keyboards.
That's true.
So can we go right back to, when you were growing up and what it was that got you into, wanting to get into electronics and music and keyboards, and then we'll go on to sort of how the keyboard thing became the Kemper thing.
Okay.
So you're obviously from Germany.
Yes.
So
correct.
Amazing English, by the way.
Thank
Congratulations. You. So tell us about life growing up.
Life growing up. I grew up in the Ruhr area in Germany, and grew up in a very musical family. So my grandfather was a director of a little music school in some small city, and all of our family, they're playing like music instruments, but more classic instruments like violin and cello. And stuff like that. So, actually one day, we also had a piano, a grand piano in the living room. And one day there was that piano teacher just showing up in a way. So we were never asked in a way, because it was regular to have some lessons, instrument lessons. So he was just there, and I went so who's he? He's your piano teacher. Oh, really?
You must have. Yeah.
Well, it was not we were not really forced to, to learn that, but he was just there. It was just regular, like going to school. So now you go to school, so I learned piano and I loved it. And then by growing older, actually, I came into the 80s computer stuff, like C64 Commodore. Mine was the Sinclair ZX Spectrum from UK.
Yeah, I had one of those too.
Yeah.
Did you have the cassette thing, and you have to and when you load one of the games in, and you wait for 5 minutes whilst all the lines
of course.
And then right at the end it just says it just didn't work, and you have to sit and do it all again.
And then I even did some hacks. On that. So there was some. For those games there were pictures. And you could find those pictures, because it was not crypted or whatever. It was just clear pictures. You could find it in the code and change those pictures and then put it back into the game. It was not that difficult, but it was fun to give somebody the game. And there was then my name on that picture in that game just for fun.
What was it? Were you playing Jet Set Willy? Does everyone remember Jet Set Willy on the ZX Spectrum?
Yeah, but I wasn't really into gaming. I was then starting. I tried to program my own games. This was actually the start of programming.
Yeah.
And then at that time I came from the music world more into the computer world, and I spent my time with a nerds on the schoolyard until I found out that's not a good idea to spend the rest of the life.
I don't know. Bit okay for you.
Yeah. It was a weird crowd. Weird crowd, no girls, of course, and nobody wanted us actually.
I know what you mean.
So one day I quit. I said, guys, I went to them. I said, guys, I quit, and I will not do computer anymore because it's absolutely not cool. And they were also not cool, but I didn't say that. And so I switched back to music, and that was like modern music, whatever, rock music and stuff. And I became a keyboarder, like from my piano playing. I became a keyboarder, and my first synthesizer was a DX9 from Yamaha. It's like the little brother of the DX7. DX9 probably not many people know that instrument. No velocity sensitivity. It's horrible, but I was I think 15 or 16 years old, so that was absolutely fine.
So we're talking what, mid to late 80s here, something like that.
Right.
Because we must be the same age, and I
think we're not.
I'm 47.
Okay, we are.
Okay.
Are you? I'm 50. Right, it's roughly.
Because I remember.
You look so much younger.
My first. Yeah, I mean, I remember like working on my weekends and stuff in Andertons, and it was actually, I think maybe DX7. I probably just missed that, but Korg M1, Juno, Juno 80 was it, or Juno?
Yeah, right. I had those
D1.
both. Korg M1, Juno, or Juno 60. Was it 60 maybe?
Maybe.
Yeah, I played
at that
live
time. The whole guitar market had taken a backseat to the synth market, and all the players were just buying these amazing cool synths. And every week I remember listening to the charts, and you could hear a patch from the Korg M1 completely that was the hit of the, it's like, mad times when you think nowadays how relatively much bigger the guitar market is than that sort of keyboard market. But so anyway, so you're playing all these keyboards.
You're right.
Are you in a band? And
oh yes, I was in many bands. I think in total I was in probably 16 different bands. None of them famous, but and different styles.
Was it electro pop kind of?
No, it was
Human League.
No, it was more. I want to say traditional. No, it was more old school. So one band was for example, a Status Quo revival band where I had to play the piano for rocking all over the world.
That's amazing. Even then, there was a Status Quo revival band. They've been around so long. Even in the 80s, they were tribute bands to the Status Quo.
Right, but my second path was the computer and electronics, and actually it happened that I came to electronics because I broke my leg when skiing when I was much younger. I think 13. Broke my leg, and I had to stay at home and couldn't go to school for a couple of weeks for that reason. But it was also a weird thing back in those days. And my parents, they brought me a electronic kit for building stuff in electronics, and I could really handle that, and it was fun for me. So that was before the keyboard area bit. And then later on it was about okay, what am I going to do? And I wanted to become a professional musician and producer, actually. But it was not difficult to find out that it's a tough way, and there's so many talented people out there. And I thought I was talented as well. But there was also other talent. And I thought why not? Maybe I wanted to go the more secure way of doing going to university, and but I thought of mixing both domains into into, for example, sound engineer, which is musical and technical, and I had some like catalogs of some like universities where I could do that. But then one day I thought like maybe I could go deeper, because it would be cool to understand how those if I learn how the technical equipment really works internally, then it's also easy to understand how to use them, right? So I went to university and studied electronic science,
right?
Which I never finished,
right?
Because then I founded my company.
So you founded Access whilst you were at university?
Yeah, right. About at the end of that university thing, so but I didn't really finish it.
Because I remember, I mean, so the first point in which I remember seeing the products that you made, we're going back to the I guess what, mid 90s now maybe.
That's right. 97, 98. I think 97.
And I remember the Access virus keyboard, and I remember because you clearly your business was small, and it couldn't make enough to supply all the music stores in the UK that wanted to do it. So I think you only ever had 1 or 2 retailers in the UK, and I remember being terribly frustrated as Andertons because we could see all these customers buying your keyboards.
You were not among them,
but not at the early time. We started probably by the late 90s or the early 2000s, whatever, we did start. But I'm not a keyboard player, so I'm kind of interested to know what was it about the Access and range of keyboards that made them so popular? How were they different to what Roland and Yamaha and Korg were making at the time?
Well, it was those days where the term virtual analog came up, and virtual analog is, well, it's like when we talk about the guitar world, it's like amp modeling. I'd say it's pretty much probably the same approach. But it was the first time really this approach had been done, and it was the revival of old analog synthesizers coming up in the dance music scene that was just evolving, right? In the beginning of the 90s, right, with techno and acid and all that stuff, and all the old synthesizers were you taken from the cellar.
Were you a big raver yourself? I mean, did you have the T-shirt with the smiley face and you're out there every night?
No, not me. I was playing a fake Hammond organ on a M1
in a Status Quo tribute band. The least techno pop that you could possibly be.
No, I was not. I was really not really in that scene. But that would not hold you off from making the synthesizer, because the synthesizers that were needed in the 90s were generic, right? They never needed special features. They were much different from, for example, what was in the 70s or what was used by progressive rock bands in the 70s, for example. It's all the same concepts, I'd say. So no specialty was needed. So I was never like a trance player or trance producer. I never was, but people finally said this is like a trance synthesizer. By whatever reasons they said that, because they saw it so often in the trance world. So the next one thought like it's dedicated to trance, which it never was. Right. That's how it happened. So that virtual. Virtual analog, right? So what was the difference to all the digital concepts? I think simply was the approach of really recreating that analog feel with simply better technique that was really dedicated to it. In the years before, there was also analog approaches, but those approaches were more made by samples or like by ROM samples, like by the concept of sample playing rather than building waveforms on the fly. Which is actually not easy to do, making analog waveforms on the fly, and this is why the quality was better. And there's a second thing: give the thing more controls, more dedicated knobs, like in the 70s, like in the 70s or 80s. They had to be there because there was no other concept to control a musical instrument. Later on, they were all cut off because it was digital. For example, by Yamaha with the DX7, it had pretty much no control, but the master volume. I think master volume and data entry, that was it, I think, from what I remember. And people wanted those knobs back. And that was like the second big thing of virtual analog. And
I mean, that's a fascinating insight into kind of almost... We'll come on to the sort of the technology in the Kemper and why it's different to how other technology products are made. But that's fascinating. And so what happened to the Access brand? Did it? Because I'm going to show my complete ignorance about what my colleagues in the keyboard department do now. So apologies there. But do you still make Access products? Or
yes, we do.
Oh, they are. So they do.
You can still buy the virus.
Okay.
You have one in your store.
Oh, good.
If not, have you? If not, you can order.
I'm sure we do. I guess what we're seeing now is the popularity and the resurgence of the electric guitar and the consequential kind of reduction in the amount of people buying keyboard products now was sort of, it just did this at the same time, didn't it? So was it?
I can't.
How were you drawn to the
for the
guitar
keyboard market? It's probably too. Yeah, I don't know if it really went down, but it wasn't for us. It wasn't really. It didn't happen that we could really like raise. Raise the business, whatever, or like develop the business by a certain amount, and also, well, let's say the revolution was over. In the 0 years, this virtual analog revolution was over. It was all settled. It was all there. It was all in the software plugins as well and stuff. This is how I came to guitar amps, because in that same time when we started the Access Virus and our company, I was always watching other companies doing digital guitar amps. Which I thought was I always liked it, and I liked the idea, and I liked the idea of distortion and stuff. We also worked one of the main component of the virus is a distortion,
right?
Positioned between two synthesizer filters, which is a great thing, I guess, and make some characteristic sounds of the virus. Actually, I don't know if it was the key to success. I don't think so, but still, I like it.
It seems now in that kind of synth market that the drive is to go back to just pure analog.
Yeah, true.
Which is just, it's such the whole world of music is just so obsessed with that period from the 60s and 70s, and and it's like, got to get back to that somehow.
Yes.
And,
but I don't think it's just this 60s, 70s thing. It's also that in the analog world, you can make less complex and thus cheaper units. It can be compared to to distortion pedals in the guitar world, because it's just a tiny bit of analog electronics and a battery, but well made. Can make a unit that can be sold for, I don't know, $100 or $200, but no more, which is not really, it's not so easy to do this in the digital world, because when you shrink down a digital product, there are still things that have to remain, such as a processor, AD/DA converters, and they don't get cheaper just by making the whole unit smaller and saving some metal for the case and some knobs on top. You still need the converters, and if you want those cheapest, you have to take converters of less quality, which you probably don't want. So there it's hard to shrink it down, and I think this is why people why analog electronics now in the synth world is so appealing, because you can simply buy 8 different things for a good budget and do things with that.
Well, I mean, that massively resonates then when it comes to guitar pedals. I can completely see the crossover there.
Yeah, it's maybe that guitarists, so that's a bit of a joke. Well, guitarists might turn a bit more into keyboarders which you don't want to hear, I'm sure. But it's just by philosophy. The keyboards now tend to migrate into the guitar world by philosophy. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's
why not?
People are obsessed with soundscapes, aren't they? I guess, you know, as the number of notes on a keyboard or a fretboard is a finite number, so you end up going, well, I'm playing all the same notes as a song that's gone before, but if I create a different soundscape, I can create a different melody, you know, different sense of music. And so I think people are much more interested now in the tools that they've got to shape the sound, as much as writing the basic song itself.
Yes, right.
But look, so you're taking this idea of virtual analog that you've worked on very successfully with Access, and you're applying it now to the guitar.
Yeah, actually, I haven't done that.
Oh, you haven't done that?
No, I haven't done that, because if we had done that, we would have a modeling amp.
Right. But was that the first? You know, I mean, well, let's go back to that. Where's this? We'll talk in a minute about the how profiling kind of is different than to other modeling products. But what was the journey? Did you start with kind of the Access type technology to make a product? Did you very early sort of go, no, that's not appropriate, we need to find another way to do this?
No, I of course I started with that technology, so I took my those distortion algorithms that I did for the virus. Those were the first that I took for my first like proof of concepts and stuff. But I I had to modify them, and of course, yes, I took that knowledge and technology from making synthesizers. I tried to migrate that to that project, of course. But then, well, I tried to make like proof of concepts, what is really needed for a tube amp, what is not necessarily needed, what is maybe where people think it's important for a tube amp, and which finally came out that it's not that important and stuff. So I tried to arrange things and stuff, and at the same time I talked to guitarists, because my problem is I'm not a guitarist, I'm a keyboard player. So I didn't have the background to like really judge what is like a really good sound, what is like a sound that's not playable that good. So I started to talk to many people, for like friends of mine and stuff, like how they perceive guitar sounds, how they perceive guitar sounds of those digital guitars that were out at that time, and I learned a thing. One thing was that people were then, like, when there were people that knew at least two modeling amps, they were saying, well, yeah, I like that model on that modeler A. I like the, for example, Marshall model better than on the other one, but with the Vox model, it's the other way. And I went like, okay, this is that's crazy. And or they went like, yeah, this has too much, like this model has too much high end for me, and I like it better here. So in the way, I needed two modelers to have that model from here and that model from there. You know, I went like, okay, if I ever went into that business, it feels like a brand graveyard. It's not just it's not about having dead brands. Don't get me wrong, but it's like so many brands. It's those brands of the traditional tube amps, and then those brands of the modeling amps, and it's like it was crazy. And I thought like we can never make it right. You can never make a model right. There will always be someone who would complain about too many highs or not this and not that. Then I thought like if I ever went into this digital guitar amp thing, I will have those discussions all my life, and I didn't want that. Like, can you make this here and there? And I didn't like that model. I know he likes it, but I don't like it, and I would do it differently and stuff. And then I thought, like, there must be a technology to that people can make their own models somehow, and that was profiling.
And that's the
And then my job is to make it happen, to make that good. But they make the profiles, and if they don't like it, it's not my direct business. Then.
So I'm sure most people watching this will have seen some crazy video at some point or other showing how a profiler creates a tone, but presumably the sort of the not old-fashioned way, but the way most other brands will work, all other brands I think, is this idea of digitally recreating the impact of each component of a guitar amplifier as you go through it to try to create an end result that sounds authentically like the guitar amp. And I must admit, your point about going, yes, you can get 10 guitar players in a room and put the Line 6 or Fractal or Digitech or whatever, here's the model, and some of them will say, yeah, that sounds like a Marshall amp, and some will say it sounds nothing like a Marshall amplifier. You're right, 10 different opinions for sure. But there's no sense when I'm profiling amplifiers in the Kemper, there's no sense of building the sound of an amplifier by dragging different components in and editing certain things. It somehow listens to an amp and then goes, there you are, that's what it sounds like. So, I mean, is there any other technology were you drawing on technologies from other businesses for that, or was this just a completely unique technology for you?
No, I think the way it is unique. Of course, it is made also by technologies that were there before, but there's also new stuff in there, and this is all combined. It's like a big amp model that that can learn about those things. It does not make a component modeling, so it can hear, oh, this is the second tube, whatever. No, it doesn't. It doesn't do that. So it runs. It listens to the whole sound. It doesn't necessarily determine. So this is from here. This is from there.
Yeah.
But in a certain way, of course, it does, because it can determine, for example, what's part of the cabinet and stuff. For sure, it can do that. That's in a way how it works. I can't actually fully. I don't want to fully explain.
Well, I mean,
by obvious reasons how it works.
No, and you've done a pretty amazing job through patents and mystery and all sorts, because absolutely no one else is approaching the way this. Well, I say that. I mean, there's one Chinese company that claims to do something similar, but whether it is or not, I
haven't really read what they're doing. I assume that they might do what many other companies do, is some sort of equalizer matching for the cabinet section.
Yeah.
Which also works pretty good if you have the model pre-selected first and then you do the cabinet matching. You can yield good results. Yeah.
So the Kemper was born. What did you when you first did you believe that it was about trying to make the products more portable, or did you believe it was more about trying to get rid of this idea of having to mic up a guitar? Where did you think in the early days that Kemper would be most popular?
Well, first of all, I didn't think at all we would be popular before the profiling was up and running. Before that, I thought I want to have a look into the market. As I mentioned before, I was watching the other companies doing digital amps while we were developing our synthesizers, and the weird thing during these days was that they didn't gain that kind of fame, especially among professionals, that we, for example, gained with our synthesizer. And I wonder why that is. And there was like, they had some sometimes they had some like big and famous artists talking about it, but they never said, okay, this thing is on our record and I have this on my world tour. It was like the best thing that they said, yeah, I have it on my tour because I rehearse in my hotel room with it, you know. And I thought, like, why is that? That's it's a pity. And it didn't take off, the whole thing, you know. We were part of this little revolution in the synthesizer world, and it took off. And there was other digital revolutions in photography, in filming, here and there, music recording, music playback, music distribution, and all kinds of like digital stuff, you know, emails. You know, it was
a pretty
all there.
Big digital revolution.
Yeah, emails, you know, stuff like that. But guitar amps didn't work. They didn't work, and there was no, for me, well, as a non-guitarist, there was no obvious reason to that. And of course, if you ask guitarists, they had an obvious reason. They said, like, they don't sound good, right? They don't sound good here and there. But I wasn't sure about it, and my result of that was they might sound good, but they don't sound familiar, because they don't sound like your amp that is sitting there. That might sound different. And that's probably one of the biggest problems. This is why I came to the idea of profiling. So then first let's make it sound like your amp, and then we start talking again.
I think there was. I remember that you know, prior to Kemper, the only really massive, well, there were probably two massive digital booms for the guitar. There was the very first, you know, when Zoom brought out the little, and everybody went, oh my God, it's like, you know, and I think everybody agrees, looking back, that does sound pretty dreadful, but it was huge when it came out. And then really products became more and more and more and more complicated and more sophisticated, and, you know, the way they were sold would be the side of the box just said, this is how many millions of effects that the thing's got on it. And then Line 6 brought out the Pod. And that was the second, you know, hugely popular, because all of a sudden it was just like, it was familiarity. Not so much familiarity of sound, but familiarity of how to operate it. You know, it just had the knobs from a guitar amplifier. But you are right. I think so many people, if you went into a guitar store and plugged into an amplifier, and instantly the sound you got wasn't quite what you wanted, you'd just adjust the volume and the bass and the treble, and you'd go, oh yeah, okay, that's better. But when you have a digital product, you know, and I'll put any brand in that, if you plug in and you go, oh, I don't really like the sound of it, and you're met with absolutely no idea how to you very, very quickly, I think, as a guitarist, just go, oh, I don't like it.
Yeah, but I mean, the first part was easy. It also had 6 knobs only. It was not that complexity. I think we found out later what probably one of the biggest problem was, and we still have that problem. It's the problem of the mic'd speaker. I mean, all digital amps have the feature of playing back a mic'd speaker, so you don't have to mic your speaker and carry your speaker. But a mic'd speaker sounds different, and we learned later that this is a big problem, because probably a majority of guitarists that come from the tube amp, and if they're not pros and do that every day, they are not used to that mic'd sound. They might have even been in recording studios with their band and doing recordings and records, but most of these guys, they didn't stay in the control room for mixing and recording, maybe for days. Probably when the recording was over, they took a pizza, for example, which is what I also would do. But they never got used to that recorded sound, or the mic'd sound. We have we have seen opinions from pros, for example, that they said they couldn't stand when in-ear started, right, on stages, in-ear monitoring. They couldn't stand the sound of their own in-ear sound because that was also mic'd, which is the same problem, but no digital amp was involved. Right,
Yeah.
but they went like, okay, what's that sound? And somebody told them, well, that's the sound of your amp, mic'd by me, and this is what your audience will also hear. This is what you have on your headphone. Oh, really? And this is probably, that might have been a big, and it's still a big issue when migrating from a tube amp to a digital amp. That that you might have to get used to those mic'd sounds. But you should think about, this is the sound that's on the record, that's on the on a big PA. So
I mean, I think that's my. I'm a sort of played guitar amps all my life, and I was talking to Pete recently. I set up a little garage band thing at home, and I'm playing, and I've got different products I'm trying to get the guitar sound out of. And my problem is I can't get anything to sound how I like it in headphones. But I don't think it's that the sound is bad. It's just I've never listened to it like this before. I've only ever listened to it.
That's probably the problem.
And it's really, really difficult.
Yeah.
And I think you do have to just there's nothing you can do to tweak the sounds to make it somehow like it's going to be in the room. You just have to get used to it. You just have to go, once the rest of the band are in. We have a little knob
for that, actually. I mean, we have thought about this.
Okay.
We have some little cures for that, for this little disease. No, for example, we have this parameter pure cabinet, we call it, and it will smoothen out the cabinet sound a bit towards to an amp in the room sound,
right?
While still maintaining the sound character of that cabinet. And I think people like it. Especially people that play on mid gain. High gain players don't like it that much,
right? Okay.
Because they want that character,
right? The tighter,
the tighter,
more projected.
Let's say high end phasey character, because it has a character, and this character cuts through in the mix very well. And that's one little cure. Second cure is our power amp, where you can run a cabinet in the room. Yeah, just your good old cabinet. Yeah, and that's a nice thing. So just take it with you, but you have to carry.
So if we look at, the other kind of fascinating thing I find about Kemper, it's a unique approach to getting the sound out of it, and one that I think has been universally, there's customers that will still say that they think their fractal is better or their helix is better, and that's completely fine. It's all opinions. But I would say the majority of opinion is that how do I get something that sounds like my amplifier? This is your technology is market leading on that side of things. But I find it fascinating that, commercially speaking, and now I'm purely and simply, taking my guitarist hat off, putting my businessman hat on, you've never given a reason to a person who has an original Kemper, like a 10-year-old Kemper. you've never given them a reason to have to sell that one to buy the latest version. It's why would you? You know, I mean, you are committed to just using the same hardware, delivering the software updates to increase the functionality. But in any other technology business, you every 2 or 3 years would just go, yeah, that's obsolete. Here's the latest one. Because that's what technology companies do. But I'm fascinated as to why you... Yeah, I admire, because it's clearly great customer service. So why is that the route that you've gone down?
Yeah, talking business, right?
Well, as I said, I've taken my guitar player hat off, and just put my businessman hat on.
It's something that other companies do, even outside the music instrument business, such as like Apple, for example. You get a software update every other week on your iPhone, and then there's bug fixes in there, probably, but maybe bugs that you've never seen, but it's fine. You could run into it the week later, so it's fixed. Some new features, some little paradigm shifts in the use model and stuff, and that's great. But
Apple wouldn't want me using a 10-year-old iPhone.
True.
I've probably changed my phone 4 times in 10 years.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, but the thing is, developing new hardware is and putting it into production is quite a complicated process. It takes some time. It can be cumbersome. It's when you revise a unit, you put in new components. You have to care about your inventory and stuff, and that's a quite complicated process. While making software updates for free maintains the value of that thing, so you don't have to have a new hardware. And you then could say, but you sell it only once. Yeah, that's true.
That's the point.
That's true. But if we're not in a market that's saturated, and if it was a saturated market, I'm sorry, we might change our thoughts, but. So at the moment we don't do that, and we have done this kind of business since 20 years now, and I might be proud to say that probably we have invented it.
Oh, 100% you've invented it.
No, we invented it for the whole digital industry.
Oh, okay.
We were probably the first. I'm still waiting for somebody to say, no, it's not true. Somebody else did it before. We probably have done the first free of charge, downloadable by internet with feature-laden firmware update in times where nobody knew what firmware was, including me, way back in 1998 for the Virus A.
My God.
And it was
I
a
can't even imagine
vocoder.
when everyone had dial-up internet. It probably took about 3 hours, didn't it, just to download the update?
No, because
Really?
no, it did not, because also the software was so small.
Well, I suppose, yeah.
Right? No, it was not a big deal, and we learned that's a fantastic thing, and it's the way to run a company with that, and have the software development decoupled from what's going on with the hardware is very attractive for a business.
I mean, not only do I admire that approach, I admire the fact as well you've always opted to keep the production in Germany, and when I presume there you must have considered the opportunity of making the stuff out in China or something and hitting different price points. I'm pretty sure it's still made in Germany, right?
It is made in Germany,
right?
It's not the case that like all components are made in Germany. Of course not. And we might do some more stuff in China or in other countries, but we have lately. And lately is 4 to 5 years ago, we have even built up our own factory with people, with our own people working there. Before that, we were working with another company, like a third company that we still work with. But now we have our own factory as well, and it's great to have it.
But I said, because you will still be, even now, you will still fairly regularly through the year not be able to keep up with demand for the product. And it's just, again, we were a little bit about when we were talking. Christoph has a really grounded approach. You were saying, again, we're probably getting, this is more of an interesting business discussion now rather than guitar. You're not a big advocate of growth for the sake of growth, are you? There are other values in your company that you value more than just growing the turnover.
It's not about growth. Well, there was actually one time where I thought growing a bit would be great, and that was actually when, way back when we only had the synthesizer business. There was years where we did the same amount of business year by year by year, which was totally fine. Everyone was happy. Every salary could be paid. Still, there was some left for me, and
nice.
And it was all fine. There was a point where I wanted to grow the company a bit, so we could, for example, hire more engineers and not taking a risk on hiring them. And this is what we could do. What we could do lately with the Profiler, which was not, we could have done even with the virus, but I had considered it to be quite risky to do so, because I didn't know if we, like, for example, if we hired two more engineers, would that mean that we could increase the business because of them, and they would make their own earn their own money by that. And that was not clear, but now it is. And that was a nice growth, but I don't see the point of like growing just for the sake of growth. No.
Well, I mean that is refreshing, and kind of sometimes resonates. I think again, Christoph and I were saying, neither of our businesses they're both privately family owned. There's no external pressure for that, and I think it's a nice place to be. So look, the Kemper lineup right now. You've got the original desktop unit. Some people call it like a toaster. You're probably familiar with that. Maybe we'll see one on screen now. You have the rack version of that.
Right.
You have the powered and the passive versions of that.
Right.
And most recently, the floor stage version of that, which is currently only in a passive version. Might I be so bold as to ask if there's likely to be, if there's enough demand for it? Do you think there could be a powered version of that at any point?
I believe there would be enough demand for that, but we have doubts how we would do it actually. I mean, we could somewhere place a power amp in there, so then the unit would get bigger. It would become bigger. The question then is like what wattage people would ask for, and I think we will not do it. We would rather opt for having this active.
Well, that was kind of my next question really, which was that for I mean, we always have fun when we go to see you at the NAMM show, because it's almost a standing joke now in the Kemper video at the NAMM show, which is like, so what's new for this year, Christoph? Absolutely nothing. Yay! That's it. And then we just walk off. Next stand, done.
Talk about growth.
But there's always been like the odd cabinet on the stand, and everyone's a bit like, is that Slum's new thing, or have you just knocked it up for the show or whatever? But I think this is still a prototype, right? So
yes.
But you are going to get into the world of Kemper cabinets.
Yes.
So again, how do you approach a technology which is a wooden box with a speaker in it and reinvent it? I mean, how do you even do that?
Yeah, so first of all, now I remember, yes, we have always had cabinets on our booth.
Yeah.
And we have this, we even had this green 4x12.
That's right.
On pictures and stuff. And I think about no one called us and asked like when this will be available. Or maybe 2 or 3 persons, which I wonder why that was. Maybe my guys in the company, they never told me that there were more.
Yeah, I don't
know.
I think
we always had that. Yes.
Yeah, I think we've always there's always been this like, so because componently, the thing that we shouldn't forget is really anybody that wants to play the guitar in a room to an audience.
Yeah.
You can have all the clever technology in it. You still need a speaker.
Yeah.
It's like there has to be, and really, I've met some guys who have done some quite clever things with the way cabinets are ported. We know that speakers have become much lighter weight over the years, but there hasn't really been a revolution in speaker. Most of the speakers in this room now haven't changed in 50 years.
Yeah, for sure.
So, what do you? How do you approach that?
I mean, the story was that I always thought from day one. I mean, from day one of the Profiler, I thought like, modeling amps, or let's say digital guitar amps, aim to replace the speaker by something digital. So the story then is, you don't need a speaker anymore. You go into the PA. If you still want monitoring, you'll have your own wedge, or your own in-ear and stuff. Like, you act like a keyboarder.
Yeah.
In a way, right? But I thought, like, is it a good idea? Because I thought, like, speakers are so much fun, and especially in the rehearsal room or at home, and they have a special sound. They sound different, as we just talked about, different than a mic speaker. It's fun, and I thought, like, it's hard to talk to a guitarist explaining our device, and then he might go and say, okay, so where do I put my speaker cable? And my answer would be, no, you don't need that speaker anymore. Yeah. I would feel like losing him, right? And it's not a good answer. I thought, like, it would be cool to tell him where to put it.
Yeah.
Right. And this is why we made the power amp.
Yeah.
That was our first approach to speakers. We made the power amp, and we made this setting that you have, that digital setting that you can have every sound, every rig, without the built-in cabinet, to be run into the speaker, which is a global setting, which is, I think, still unique in the digital guitar amp world, that you can have like a global setting to say, we have the power amp, you run it into a guitar speaker, and this works with every rig right now. Yeah. So you go to front of house with the speaker simulation, and to your speaker without the speaker simulation, just by one setting. Yeah. And so that was the first approach. And the second approach was one day this nice guy from Celestion. He stopped by at our booth, and I thought it was cool. He said, "Yeah, I'm from Celestion, and we would love to work with you together in the future." I said, "Yes, you're probably right at our booth, because we like speakers and we have a power amp, and let's talk." So we talked and talked over the years, put some ideas, and there was this idea to have a linear speaker that could run the linear sound. I don't want to say FR, because I think it's a bit, FR is enough. FR is a bit double.
I think FR.
Yeah,
is
there
better.
you are. Yeah,
you should just go more.
That. We might have a FR.
But say it though, like just go for. For speakers.
Yeah,
it's the best way.
For FR. That's
speakers,
cool. Yeah, right.
And that's much better.
So linear, I'd say full range. We said
full range. I know what you mean.
Full range, right? So like a full range approach that could be also switched to the sound of classic sounds, but in an amp in the room fashion, and that's what we did. Actually, while we were developing that, the company Line 6 also made a product like that, and came out even before us. But I can tell we've been developing that for quite a long time. We didn't do it all day long. Actually, it was a side project, but we had it up and running without telling people. I think on the NAMM show 2 or 3 years ago.
Well, the Line 6 thing, I think it's amazing how conservative guitar players are. Because really, if you remember those Line 6 PA products, I think it was I forget what they were called, Stage something, PA products. Really, the power cab, that PA product. That had all the DSP, everything in it to make it work like a guitar cabinet. You plug your Helix into it, whatever. It was a great product. But because it looked like a PA cabinet, guitar players were like, I don't want it. I don't want it.
Yeah, but
so they had to reinvent it all, re-engineer it all, make it just look like a PA cabinet. Sorry, a guitar cabinet.
Yes,
like power cab. And now all of a sudden, guitar players go, great, I'll buy it now because it just looks like I've got a guitar cab.
Yeah.
So we were saying before, how far this is not a powered cab at the moment, is it? So and there's no DSP or anything in here.
Right.
So what product do you think you'll finally bring to market? One with DSP built into it?
No.
So it'll just be a straight passive cab.
The trick behind that is our approach is not having a cab with let's say the intelligence in there, but we want to put the intelligence into the profiler because it has intelligence already. There's the infrastructure like the DSP and all that stuff. It's already in there. So and it can do that task as well. And once this task is done in the profiler that you own anyway, hopefully, we don't need a smart speaker. We can have a dumb speaker.
Yeah,
in a way, or just a speaker. It can stay passive by that. That's an important point. And by having the speaker passive, we can also deliver it as a replacement part. And that was the main idea that I had. Let's have a speaker.
Oh, just the speaker?
Oh, yes.
So you just want to, so people don't even have to have, they could have their existing 1x12 or 2x12 cab and just buy the speakers.
Right. Because it's hard to determine like what kind of cabinets people want to have in the digital amp world. Will it still be a 4x12 or a 2x12 or 1x12, open back, closed back, in blue, in green, in red, or in black? Right? Genius. I don't know. And there's so many fantastic manufacturers of cabinets out there in the whole world. And there's for example one point when you do a 4x12. You do a 4x12 and then you have to ship it around the world, but it's so huge. We don't have logistics for that. Of course, like companies like Marshall, they have logistics for that because it's really part of their core business. But I thought, like, first of all, how many players of digital amps or of the profiler will purchase a 4x12, which is really not needed? Right, a 4x12 is just for fun. It's definitely not needed for running a profiler because, as we know, you don't need any cabinet for running a profiler. Why? So, what point do we have to make a 4x12? Right, so bulky, and then we had to have people that know how to send it to Australia, which is, I think, probably it's a mess to send it to Australia, and so I thought like having a replacement speaker is a much better idea, and everyone either you have a cabinet and it's nice, and you replace the speaker by hours. You don't have to throw away the other speakers. You put in the same boxes and put it on the cellar, and maybe you need them 10 years later.
So how far? This is a collaborative design with Celestion.
Yes, correct.
And how far off of that?
It's pretty far. I can't give you an estimated time of arrival, but it's the whole development is done. It was nearly done even at the last NAMM show. Yeah. Well, at that time we didn't have the final speaker from Celestion yet. So it's all done.
Maybe the winter 2020 NAMM we might see something.
Yeah, probably. Maybe a bit earlier, maybe a bit later. So it's hard. It's always hard.
Maybe tomorrow, maybe 25 years down the line.
Yeah, no growth. It's hard. It's hard to say. It's sometimes hard to say. When companies have a real estimate time of arrival, I'd say then that their product is in the shelf already, and they're just waiting for that day. So we don't have it in the shelf yet.
Well,
and that's a prototype. It looks a
little
cool. Bit different.
I like the look of it.
Yeah.
talk about a product that is in existence already.
Oh, you mean the bag, right?
Which is, but this is new. This is profiling bag technology, right? You can this can be any bag.
Yeah. Yeah, and we had this
literally.
Yeah, and we had this
any bag you want.
We had this designer.
That is unbelievable.
Who made
tech.
this? Look, it's like.
I tell you, I mean that is cutting edge.
Yeah.
That is cutting edge, fearsome technology. Watch out, Louis Vuitton and Chanel and all those, because pretty soon, just saying. Oh,
it's got
this
one strap. So try it out.
I'm going to try it.
It's easy to.
I'm going to try it on. What is it? Update via USB or is it Bluetooth?
It will be.
Or is it just?
There will be the over-the-air update, like this. The over-the-air update.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, there we are. So there's a bag, which is
there's the bag.
awesome.
Of course, we didn't say the bag is for the profiler stage.
Yes.
We didn't mention it.
Well, hopefully people work that one out. But anyway, I don't want to. I do want to ask you, as the sort of end of our interview. You know,
I have so many to tell still.
Well, if you want to carry on telling stories, that's fine by me. I mean, look, I am regularly fooled into believing what I'm listening to is a real amp, you know, when it's actually a Kemper. And I must admit, of all the alternative kind of products on the market, I'm drawn to the Kemper just because of how how authentic it does sound. There has, for the last sort of 7 or 8 years, been this moral debate about, you know, how do you ensure, or how do you ensure that manufacturers who design guitar amplifiers and all of the costs and time and energy involved in doing that, you know, what does their future look like if the sound can be so reliably captured for free, you know, and downloaded from a wonderful community that you've got online. So there's this sort of moral debate about. So it's not a technological one.
Oh, sure.
You know, and is it even possible to have a view from your side of things on something like that?
Of course, yeah. Of course, I can have a view on that, and of course I have a view. And yeah, I mean, it is for sure seen from the tube amp side of things. This is a disruptive technology, classic disruptive, really, like MP3s probably, or like other disruptive things. But I also would say that modeling amps, like digital amps, in total, are that disruptive. Maybe we're even a bit more disruptive, but there has been that disruptive thing since 25 years. Mm-hmm. Right, so modeling amps are there since 25 years. When was that Zoom thing? That was the first.
Exactly.
When was that?
Late 80s.
94?
Or was it maybe a little?
Maybe.
I thought it was early. Was it 90s? Okay.
80s.
I thought it was 80s.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
then it's even older.
Yeah.
So it has about nearly always been there. It didn't really take off, and amps were modeled, and now partially. They will be profiled, and I think that's the way it goes. Way it is. If our company, if we never did profiling, if we never went into that business, there would for sure other companies be still very successful in modeling, and they are also successful today. And it's a development that can't be stopped, and it's a development you can see everywhere. It's just
I think you're
digital wave.
Yeah, I suppose you could say the same about people who used to make typewriters and people who used.
There you are.
Yeah, I understand. It's just an interesting. Yeah. I suppose there is that moral fine line where you're sort of going. This is clearly a Marshall or a Vox or a originated tone, but that you can now have for free with there's no income stream from that 4 Marshall box.
Yeah.
And so I wonder whether or not there's I suppose is it just up to these guys to come up with their own technology that just competes and...
Probably not, because that'll also be hard. What you can see in when you see in history of disruption, there's actually a nice book that I read, which was the favorite book of Steve Jobs from Apple. Mm-hmm. And it's his book recommendation. It's not his book, he didn't write it, but it's his recommendation. It's called the Innovators Dilemma, but it's talking about disruptive technologies. And it has always happened. This book actually started with, that doesn't matter. Let's not talk about that book too deep. And you can tell that sometimes disruptive technology also means that there's new companies coming out, owning that new technology, or like developing that technology, which is then hard for the other companies to make because they have a different, they always had a different approach. That is, for example, analog versus digital. Like, for example, there's no one in my company that could make a tube circuit. But we don't have to have one. But they're all real experts. The probably one of the best experts for digital audio technology, and that such a team is, I think, hard to be built up and then also marketed. This is it's quite difficult, I think.
Well,
and
look, I apologies for putting you on the spot there.
Oh,
but
no
that
problem.
That was a fair answer, and I think you're completely right.
But there's also because some people might also ask if where's the moral of like copying, like carbon copying amps with a profiling technology, and then there's other people saying, well, this carbon copy thing has been done in the past, even from tube to tube, where one company copies the circuit from the other. Even in the 60s and 70s,
for sure,
and it always happened.
You're right. It is the way of technology, isn't it? It will. If there's one thing for sure, it's that things will carry on changing. For sure. All right. Well, look. I will put. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. As I said, I know you. We haven't. This hasn't been a typical video with lots of guitar playing in it and stuff like that. But I just think because Christoph's had such a profound effect on the music industry and the way sounds are captured, and the Kemper has been such a phenomenal success, that it would be fun to ask Christoph on you could get to know him a bit. He's a cool guy. Don't you think he's a cool guy? I think he's cool. But there we are. Thank you very much for coming in. I look forward to seeing, come to see you at NAMM for another 3 seconds. So what's new, Christoph? Nothing. Okay, bye. And stay tuned, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Right.
And we'll see you next time.